They have come out here to present to us a message about pro-life, about chastity, and I'll let him introduce our guest speaker for today. So thanks for being here this morning, Mike.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for coming, everyone. It's just great to see you. I'm, like you said, the pro-life director for the Diocese of Grand Island. And when you say that, you probably don't know much about the organization. And I'm a volunteer. The bishop asked me to serve in this role. And my official title is I'm the director of the pastoral plan for pro-life activities. And there's a pastoral plan that the bishop's developed. Now, I'll just briefly say what that plan is. There's 4 pillars in this plan. And there'll be a quiz later on, so pay attention, okay? 4 pillars. The first pillar is prayer, and we'll start with a prayer. Deacon Davis will do this shortly. The second pillar is pastoral care. And pastoral care is relating to, let's say you heard of Project Rachel, showing mercy and forgiveness to ladies that have had an abortion or contemplate an abortion, those types of things, outreach. The third pillar is what I refer to as public policy. And you're not directly involved with that, but there's folks in our organization in Grand Island and in Lincoln and in DC that are involved with legislative arena as far as pro-life bills, pro-life legislative actions that take place in our legislature in Lincoln. And you'd be surprised, it's called the Nebraska Catholic Conference in Lincoln. They have a great staff. There's 4 members in that staff. And they're very proactive, and they do lobbying with a Family Alliance organization to promote pro-life in our state. And then the 4th pillar is what I refer to as the 4th P, is public information, knowledge, understanding. It's really both ways. You got to understand what the pro-life issues are so you can evangelize and tell other folks that are pro-life what is the truth. So this morning, Teresa's going to talk a little bit about just information, knowledge. She'll talk about science, biology, but also the logic behind where we're at as far as the church's teaching on pro-life. So that's the genesis of this talk. We've been in Kearney, we've been in Grand Island yesterday, and this morning we're here at North Platte, and it's really great to be here. So I'm going to open it up to Deacon Davis for a short prayer, then I'll introduce our main speaker.
Thank you, Mike. I am so grateful that Teresa and Mike have brought this to our school. As I returned to teaching last fall, I realized, and it's become a burning need in my heart, the need to let you know how beloved and precious you are, and the value of chastity, how that's paramount to our Christian walk, our Christian pilgrimage. So in light of that, I attended the Theology of the Body training in Cincinnati for 3 days, 1st of August. So in my classes, and I believe Mrs. Pandorf's classes, we're going to be introducing or reintroducing the theology of the body, which ties right in to our origin, purpose, and destiny that Teresa's going to talk about. Now, our destiny is to be truly loved by God, who loves us unconditionally. But it's our free will that turns us to that. He is pursuing us. He loves us. It's the greatest relationship we can ever have. So with that, let us begin with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. May we hold fast to Christ, our hope, in every season of life. As it says in Psalm 139, we are knit together in our mother's wombs until we take our final breaths. Each moment of our lives is a gift from God. While every season of life brings its own challenges and trials, each season also gives us opportunities to grow in relationship with Him. As new attacks on human life continue to emerge, we might be tempted to despair. but Christ gives us unfailing hope. Christ's promise of salvation does not mean that we will be spared from suffering, but rather that even in the darkest moments of our lives, we will be given the strength to persevere. For this reason, a woman experiencing a difficult pregnancy can find the strength to welcome her precious child into the world. A man facing a terminal diagnosis can see the end of his earthly life is the beginning of eternal life with Christ. When the seas of life swell and we are battered by the waves, hope allows us to remain anchored in the very heart of God. May we hold fast to Christ our hope from the beginning of life to its very end. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
May Almighty God bless you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Thank you, Deacon. This is Teresa Kenney. She's a nurse practitioner at an organization called the St. Paul VI Institute in Omaha. And she has over about 20 years of experience in women's health care and fertility awareness. And she'll talk a little bit about theology of the body and then segue into the biology and science about our beautiful lives that we have. Her talks is centered around God's plan for marriage and family. Welcome, Teresa.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I am super grateful to be here with you today and super grateful to be able to present all this really important information to you. I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, I have 20 years of experience as a nurse practitioner in women's health. I was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska. I went to school and got a nursing degree at Briarcliff College and then went on to get my master's degree at University of Nebraska Medical Center in specializing in women's health. So I've always been passionate about women's health. When I was younger, in high school, I actually used to go to abortion clinics in Omaha with my mother. And Father Hannafeld at that time was a leader in pro-life ministry in Omaha, and he would be a priest out praying in front of abortion clinics and leading the rosary and a peaceful protest and being there for the woman. And I was one of those young people that looked up to him, and so I'm just excited that Bishop Hannafeld has allowed me today to come to you and speak to you. I love to work with women's health issues. What I do is look at treating underlying root causes of disease, which we'll talk a lot more, especially when we get into the woman's talk. But I don't use any sort of synthetic hormones in my practice, meaning that I don't use any birth control. I'm able to actually treat all women's health issues without using any of those synthetic hormones, which excites me because I get to give treatments to women that are really healthy and respect the dignity of her body. This is my family. This is my family as drawn by my youngest son, Joshua. I just found this picture in the bottom of my van a couple days ago, and I was like, oh, hey, someone drew a picture of my family. So I asked Joshua about it. We have 8 children, and I was curious to know who had to be held, because it looks like he ran out of room on the paper, and had to put the last person in somebody else's arms. I thought it might be him, since he's the youngest, but it wasn't. It was our 10-year-old daughter, Rachel, being held by my 15-year-old son, Jude. So just fun to see how kids draw out your family. This is my actual 8 children. I have Anna, Isaac, Jude, Brendan, Daniel, Rachel, Colton, and Joshua. I think I hit them all. I have a big family, obviously. My husband and I, when we got married, we wanted a big family. We thought we'd have 6 to 8 kids, and we've been really blessed to have 8 children. So very fun life. My husband is a theology teacher at Creighton Prep High School in Omaha, Nebraska, but he's also a local author. He writes children's books, he writes middle school novels, and he writes actually a series for adults, like cozy mysteries, basically. So I just think it's super cool. I'm really proud of him. And he actually wrote a book just recently called I Am Beautiful Because, which is about how we are beautiful because we love, not because of necessarily any other attribute we have. We're most beautiful because we love. So it's a really important message that ties into what I'm talking about today. And we just had a newest member of our family join us. This is Emmett Kenney. Emmett Kenney is a little Maltipoo. That's, if you don't know what a Maltipoo is, it's a cross between a Maltese and a Poodle. He was rescued from a breeder. He only weighs 3.5 pounds, and he just joined our family. So I always said we'd never get a dog because I said we had too many children, so dogs wouldn't just work in our family. But I changed my mind when I saw little Emmett, and now he's ours. Okay, so this is just kind of an introduction. This doesn't necessarily have to do a lot with what I'm talking about today, but I love talking about health. I'm a nurse, I love to educate. So kind of tips in terms of like your overall life health, things that you should always be thinking about. And always ties into who we are holistically, body, soul, and spirit. So what's at the end of your fork? What you eat every day is super important, because eventually what you put inside your body will be expressed on the outside of your body in some way or another. Now when you're young, you can get away probably with eating quite a bit of junk food, quite a bit of crappy foods and sugar, and it probably wouldn't show that much. But I guarantee you when you get older, our bodies are not as friendly, and eventually those get expressed in some sort of disease. And I don't just mean maybe having a weight issue, I mean like autoimmune issues and pain and just feeling old and creaky. All of those things happen. So what you put in your body is super important. And actually vegetables are the most important thing you can add on your plate. So pile on the vegetables every day as much as you can. What are the relationships you create? Who you end up being is so much tied to who you have as friends. And this is so true as you go, get older, and especially when you venture into college after high school. Who you choose as friends in college will be who you become. So if you have a certain value set, choose friends that are the same value set as yourself, or choose friends that you want to aspire to be. And that's what you will become. You want to help lift yourself up by creating wonderful relationships where you are, loved by them and you can love others. How well do you sleep? Who gets 8 hours of sleep a night? Oh, Okay, we need more people getting more sleep. Sleep is so important. Sleep is when your body actually detoxifies. So all of the things that happen to you during the day, all of the food you put in your body, all the toxins you're exposed to, all the stress that you have, all of the things that just happen throughout the day, you need sleep in order to detoxify from all that, and it actually regenerates cells and regenerate your body. And you need a good 8 hours of sleep to do that. So as much as it's hard to do in high school, because I know you're so busy with all these activities, strive for more sleep. Stress. Who feels stressed out? Yeah, stress is a big deal. And stress, unfortunately, doesn't go away when you get older. So it's something we constantly have to deal with. Having coping mechanisms of stress is incredibly important to your health. So you've got to figure out, how do I deal with this when I'm super stressed out? When I've got finals, when I've got sports, and I don't have time to finish this paper and all these things. What do? Take time to meditate and pray. Or just sit. Be quiet. We don't get enough quiet. Do something fun. Do something with your friends. Go for a run, or just jump on a trampoline. Get some exercise. Raise those endorphins. But have a coping mechanism that works for you for stress. What is your vocation? Ultimately, it comes down to this. Your vocation is to be gift to other. That's all you really need to focus on. I know it's important to think about what you're going to do in your career and all of those things, all those big decisions, but ultimately every day you should be asking yourself, how can I be gift to another? Because that's what God calls you to do. God calls you to be total self-gift. How can I deny myself something and give it to another person? And that's where ultimate joy comes from. And this ties in then to our human sexuality. Really, honestly, everything ties into. I know it seems crazy, and this is the message that the world needs to hear, is that your human sexuality is everything. It is what the inner life of God is, in essence. You, and using your human sexuality in the way that God designed it, is a symbol of the inner life of God. And so it's the most important question, it's the most important thing that you will learn in your lifetime, is how to use that gift. This is understanding your origin, your purpose, and your destiny. It is the theology of the body, but I like to say it this way just because it makes sense to me. Okay, we're going to watch just a short video just to get us interested.
Every society in the history of the world has seen that yin and yang, the masculine and the feminine, are not limited to humans or even just to animals. The God who invented human sexuality also invented the universe. The two fit.
The couple is the starting point, but it's a ripple. It goes round, wide. Whatever I do in my marriage, the circle keeps increasing, it keeps widening until it covers the whole world.
In every context throughout history, where there were strong families, only good came of it. Across societies, the growth of decline of civilizations hits the family.
Marriage is beyond us, it's about the society. It is your own project for the world.
You have ravished my heart, my sister, my bride.
I belong to my lover, and my lover belongs to me.
Where you come from. So I love in this video, it's just short, it's a trailer to some videos called the Humanum series. I love when the woman says, whatever I do in my marriage, the circle begins to widen, and it covers the whole earth. So although you're not thinking about marriage at this point in your life, most of you will be called to marriage. And those of you who are not called to marriage, you're still called to the same type of gift that marriage calls us all to. And if we live out total self-gift in the way God calls us, it will widen and spread across the earth. Just like he said, marriage is the foundation of our culture. And if marriages are strong, if families are strong, then the culture of life is built up. And so it's our job. It's my job, it's your job to live out this gift in the way God designed it so we can build up the earth and build up the culture of life. So again, you are created with a divine stamp. It's right in your body, it's right in your heart, and God is calling you to live out this imprint in your heart. And if you do, again, what that expresses to the rest of the world is who God is. And of course, we all know, what is God? God is love. Your purpose. So how you use your body, how you use this gift, ultimately is so important. The human body, right from the beginning, includes the capacity of expressing love, that love in which the person becomes a gift. And by the means of this gift, fulfills the meaning of his being and his existence. Her existence. God is calling you to reveal to the world who he is. And if you think about the Trinity, what is the Trinity? It's this perfect explosion of love. The Father has the Son gives himself completely back to the Father in this perfect love that we can't even explain. But it's so incredible and so big that it has to come outside of itself. And how it does that is in the Holy Spirit. And the best example of how we can live that out is in marriage. Because if we live out what really God is, what this Trinitarian love is, then when a man gives himself to a woman, when a husband gives himself to a wife, and they're giving themselves as total self-gift, free, faithful, and fruitful, it has to come outside of itself. And it's an explosion of love so big that in 9 months, you have to give it a name. And that name is an eternal soul created out of nothing that we get to participate in as human beings that will go back to God for all eternity. What an incredible blessing we have. What an incredible sacred gift we have to be co-creators with our God. Christ, the perfect example for us in living out this total self-gift. Right? Christ gave himself to us fully. He held nothing back. All the way to the end. Christ manifests the love with which he has loved her, the church, by giving himself for her. That love is an image and above all a model of the love which the husband should show to his wife in marriage when the two are subject to each other out of reverence for Christ. So again, Christ is the perfect example. And what does that tell us about marriage, about life, in terms of really what our purpose is? Our purpose is not to get whatever we want whenever we want it. Our purpose is not self-gratification. Our purpose is to give in a self-sacrificing way, in a love that's redemptive. So it's hard. If being a Christian were easy, there'd be a lot more Christians. But Christianity calls us to self-sacrificing love, which is sometimes not easy. Because most of us, when we're born, and we get to that age about 2 or 3, we don't want to give to other people. I don't want to share my fruit snack with a 3-year-old next to me. I want to win the game every time. When we're young, we're all full of ego, right? We want everything for ourselves. But as you get older, what are your parents trying to teach you? What are your teachers trying to teach you? Like, it's not all about you. It's about giving. It's about sharing. It's about forgiveness. And this is the message that we all kind of have to learn. And I would say that, you know, most of us, even all the way up into our 20s, are pretty still all about ourselves in a lot of ways. But marriage is really the easiest way to kind of let the ego die. Because marriage is complete giving to another person, and it truly is kind of like sacrificing always on the behalf of the other. Your job when you get married is to get your spouse to heaven. It's hard work. But that's the example that Christ gave us on the cross. Take self-sacrificing love in order to live out your purpose, your destiny. And what waits for you at the end? Complete joy. And not just complete joy in heaven, because that's what God gives us in the end, is this incredible banquet. But joy on earth. Happiness if you live out that purpose. All right, so I believe like knowledge is so important, and empowerment is really an important word. Like, you deserve to know everything, that it's important to have a foundation in human sexuality that begins with knowledge. And most of us aren't given this knowledge growing up. So it starts by understanding your fertility. So we're going to move a little bit more kind of now into the science of how your bodies work, how fertility works, because I believe that this type of knowledge is what's going to integrate you in your body and soul. How many of you have a cell phone with you? Okay, that works. What I'm going to have you do is get it out, and we're going to play a Kahoot. Kahoot is always the worst. All right, we'll give you a few minutes to log in here.
This is forever.
And if you don't have a phone, help the person next to you who does with their answer.
Oh, how did they get that turtle?
All right, one more minute. Anybody need any more time? All right, you ready? All right. Very good. All right, how much do you know about your fertility? Question 1, the pituitary gland is the control center of the reproductive system. True or false? The pituitary gland is the control center of the reproductive system. True or false?
Dear God, I'm gonna lose.
This is true for both men and women. I mean, the answer is. That is true. Everything starts in your brains. There's the answer. It's all in your brains.
Oh!
All right, question 2. You can ovulate more than once in a cycle. Can you ovulate more than once in a cycle? True or false? That is not true. You cannot ovulate more than once in a cycle. Rabbits can, but you can't. All right. Good job, Gavin. All right, question 3. The egg, once released from the ovary, lives 3 to 4 days. The egg, once released from the ovary, lives 3 to 4 days. That is false. The egg, once released from the ovary, only lives for 12 to 24 hours. 12 to 24 hours. All right, question 4. Men are only fertile at certain times of the month. True or false? Men are fertile only certain times of the month. True or false? Good job, that is false.
I'll tell you with Andrew.
Men are fertile all the time.
Andrew, I'll try with you.
Number 5, menstrual tracking apps can predict when you are going to start your next period. Menstrual tracking apps can predict when you're going to start your next period.
That's disgusting.
That is false. Unless you peed on your phone cannot tell you when you're going to start your period.
Yeah, everyone almost got that right.
Question 7. Sperm can live up to 3 3 to 5 days in cervical mucus. Sperm can live 3 to 5 days in cervical mucus. True or false? That is true. Number 8, women who are in jail are more likely to have committed their crime while PMSing. Women in jail are more likely to have committed their crime while PMSing.
Oh my God.
That is true. Research has shown it.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Number 9, fertility awareness-based methods, or NFP, are 97% effective at avoiding pregnancy. Fertility awareness methods, or NFP, are 97% effective at avoiding pregnancy. True or false? Yeah. That is true. It is true. Number 10, women similar to men make the hormone testosterone. Women similar to men make the hormone testosterone. True or false?
Oh, dang it. You're right. I thought it was covered with stuff.
You know that, yes. Women actually make testosterone. It's true.
I am
Number 11. You need these 3 things to be able to become pregnant. What are they? Egg, sperm in a uterus, egg, sperm in cervical mucus, egg, sperm in love, or egg, sperm in pizza.
Love. That's how we live. Oh my God.
It's egg, sperm, and cervical mucus. It's a little tricky, I get. But it's actually those 3. Right. Last one. Oh, wait, second last. What event of the cycle allows you to predict the onset of your next period? Is it the period? Is it ovulation? Is it cramps? Or is it crying all the time? It is ovulation. How often is a man fertile? You guys got this. Is it men are attracted, or when they're only attracted to a female, from the time they're in puberty until they're dead, when they eat lots of red meat, or just once a month?
Always press the yellow. Also, that's orange.
Good job. Okay, if you see your name, if you're one of the top 3 at the end, then come down and I'll get you a prize. I'll hand it. All right, who won? Bree and Bella? Bree and Bella. All right, who's the last one? Someone else. There you go. All right, good job, you guys. So now you know a little bit about what you know already, what you don't know maybe. So we're going to go a little bit more into detail with this so you get a better understanding of the answers to these questions. And again, this is so important. It integrates with all the first part of what I was talking about, because if you don't know yourself, you don't know how your body works, then you really can't understand its origin, purpose, and destiny. And so as we learn this information, you tie it together back to, again, what God is calling us to, and it all makes sense to some degree. I mean, the world's confusing, but this really helps. I believe this type of self-knowledge and awareness allows for a fully integrated self-possession. If you cannot possess yourself, if you can't understand its dignity and worth, then you're a lot more likely to give it away without understanding why you are. Like being able to live a chaste life means that you have to be able to self-possess. You have to know why your body has dignity, you have to know what its purpose is, and you have to, again, ultimately know what your destiny is. These are the things that we don't learn in sex education. Typically in a sex education class, especially in a secular type of school, they talk about maybe what sex is from a biological standpoint, but the rest of it is really about risk mitigation. How do I do this with not getting the consequences from it? That's not what sex was designed for. If you have to constantly figure out how not to get STDs and not to get pregnant and all these terrible things, you're not using it the right way. So these are the things you don't get to learn, and this is what I'm going to educate you about today. We're going to learn how your fertility works as both a male and a female. We're going to learn about normal biological markers that tell a woman if she's fertile or infertile every day. You're going to learn about the signs of ovulation, learn about what's normal and abnormal in a menstrual cycle, learn about natural ways that you can use to avoid and achieve pregnancy, and learn about your authentic femininity and masculinity and how to be empowered to take charge of your health. Again, and this is so important in terms of health as well, because if you don't understand how your cycle works, if you don't understand how your body works, when you go to a doctor and you have problems with your menstrual cycle, if you don't know how it works, you're not going to get a lot of answers. You can actually be more proactive by going in and knowing what's going on in your body. Okay, fertility 101. Okay, we know the starting point here, I mean, the main event of what causes a conception or fertilization or a new life is ovulation. That's the main event when it comes to fertility. I mean, of course, you have to have a sperm, and you have to have, we'll talk about more, this stuff called cervical mucus. But ovulation is the main event that allows that to be possible. And a female can only become pregnant really in about a 3 to 5 day window in her menstrual cycle. So when there's this short window of fertility where an actual conception occurs. Contrary to a woman, a male is fertile from the time they enter puberty, which is about 12 years of age, until they die. So their fertility is all the time, lifelong, until they're buried in the ground. Just some fun kind of fertility facts for guys. Since most of the time when we talk about this stuff, we're talking about women's cycles. I know I don't want to leave you guys out. This is kind of fun. Each male produces 500 billion sperms in his lifetime. That's like crazy. That's like mind-blowing to me. It's kind of when they talk about like 500 billion plus galaxies, and I just don't, my head just doesn't understand it. The male testicles are on the inside of your body before you are born, so in utero, and about 2 to 3 weeks before you're born, they descend to the outside, unlike a woman whose reproductive organs are always on the inside of her body. And again, men will become fertile at the age of 12 and will be fertile until their death. So it's, Abraham in the Bible was able to impregnate his wife Sarah when he was in his, I think it's somewhere around 80s or 90s, they think. Researchers have found that men's testosterone levels change after a win versus a loss. According to Science Direct, men who have more testosterone after losing are more likely to compete again. And standing in the high power pose increases your testosterone level by 20%, according to a Harvard study. So men, I give you permission right now to raise your testosterone. Come on, seriously, don't you guys want more testosterone? Unreal. Good job. We'll give you should get a baby card for that too.
There you go.
Yeah. No, testosterone is so important, you guys. I mean, it is the hormone that makes you be men. Gives you that masculinity. It makes you strong, of course. It makes you be a leader. It makes you fight for the person who's vulnerable. Like it's just such an important hormone. I mean, you guys you're pretty basic. Testosterone levels, you know, they fluctuate. It's usually higher in the morning. Later in the day, it's a little bit lower, but it's secreted every day. It's a pretty much kind of an easy track. This is a lot different than women. This is women's hormones, which is why we're kind of crazy part of the time, right? Like your hormones go on a roller coaster ride compared to men, which is why we feel different at different times in the month. In the purple here, you can see that, I don't know, does this have a little light? No. But in the purple, you can see that big increase. That's right before ovulation. That's the hormone estrogen. Heard of estrogen before? It's one of the main female ovarian hormones. And estrogen is awesome. Estrogen makes women feel beautiful. Estrogen makes your skin look better. It makes your hair look better. Oftentimes, that part of the month, you look at them and are like, hey, I look pretty good. It also causes your body to release something called pheromones. So men are more likely to be attracted to you when you're ovulating. In fact, they've done studies in bars to show that men are more attracted to women who are naturally ovulating than they are to women who are on birth control. Another reason maybe not to use birth control. If you want to attract a man, it's a better idea to be ovulating. And then after ovulation, that big green bar, that's progesterone. Progesterone is the second main ovarian hormone, and its job is to prepare your body to be a mother. It's the progestational hormone. It gets the body ready every month, that womb, that uterus, ready for a new life to be implanted in. It's its whole purpose. But of course, every month, most of the time, you're not, of course, getting pregnant, becoming a mother. So those hormones slide way down right before your period, and that causes the period to start, which is the shedding of the lining of the uterus. And that happens over and over again for a woman, month after month. So this type of awareness of your fertility is super important, especially for women. I always like to mention, too, we're going into winter, that vitamin D is super important. And because we live in Nebraska, you're likely to be low in it. You know, increase your vitamin D by drinking more milk, but also consider getting a little extra, too. Really important for your immune system. Okay, so fertility awareness. So the whole, menstrual cycle, again, we kind of think of the main event in a woman's menstrual cycle as her period, right? And that's what she has to prepare for. That's what comes every month. It's not the fun part. But it's actually just an afterthought. It's an after event. The main event is ovulation. And just like the period shows us through a physical sign of what's going on, something you can see, so too ovulation gives your body a physical sign that tells you that you're fertile, or essentially when ovulation is approaching. And that thing is cervical mucus. So it's weird, but it's what, again, makes the way God designed us. It's beautiful. Every month, somewhere in the middle of the cycle, and this is that Kahoot question, you get up to a week of this clear discharge. And again, in that question, it's kind of confusing. You'd think you'd need a uterus to get pregnant, but actually you can have pregnancies outside a uterus. You absolutely have to have three things in order to get pregnant. You have to have a sperm that comes from the man, right? You have to have an egg that is released and comes from the woman, and you have to have this stuff called cervical mucus that comes from the woman. Does anybody know why you have to have this stuff called cervical mucus? This is tricky, but what do you got?
Keeps the sperm alive until ovulation.
Yes, great answer, thank you. Because what do sperm do? What do sperm have? A head and a... Yes, they swim. Thank you. So can you swim in a pool with no water? No. So without cervical mucus, sperm literally die within seconds to minutes. Like they can't live very long at all. But in this really good cervical mucus that's produced during ovulation, the sperm can live 3 to 5 days. So this is the essential ingredient to get the sperm up to the egg. right? Because the egg is released way up here in the fallopian tube, and the sperm are way down here at the entrance of the cervix, and that sperm have to go all the way up. These tiny little sperms swim all the way up to the fallopian tube up here, and that's where fertilization or conception of a new life occurs. And then it comes back down, and it has to implant inside the uterus where it makes its home for 9 months. Okay, so cervical mucus, this extra thing, is the essential ingredient to make conception occur. And you can see, you know, from this little diagram, that it's a cycle. You know, it happens every month. You have your period. There's a period of time where you're not noticing this stuff called cervical mucus, this discharge. Somewhere in the middle, women will notice it, lasts for about a week, and then it stops, it shuts off dramatically, and then we have a whole period of dryness. So the reason why you can only get pregnant in this very short window of 3 to 5 days is because of that sperm survival. So essentially you can only get pregnant in the white part where this woman is producing mucus. And this is the science, the core of the science of natural family planning and fertility awareness-based methods. You only ovulate once in a cycle. Again, that egg again only lives for 12 to 24 hours. And so that sperm, the reason why it can kind of cause fertilization, even though it only lives for that short amount of time, is because it can hide out in that cervical mucus and be present when that egg is released, which lengthens that fertile window beyond the 24 hours. There's also another change, a biological marker that tells your body that ovulation has passed, and that's body temperature. So your average body temperature is not 98.6, which a lot of, you know, we're kind of thought to believe that it is. A woman's body temperature before ovulation will be somewhere between 97.2 degrees to about 97.8 degrees on average. After ovulation, the hormone progesterone that gets your body ready for pregnancy will actually increase your body temperature by a ½ degree. And so your body temperature will go above generally 98.0 at that point and stay up until you are close to starting your next period. In fact, a woman can know that she's pregnant just by taking her body temperature. Because if she goes along in her cycle and her temperature is above 98, above 98, and then before she's supposed to start her period, it doesn't go back down, it actually goes up a little bit, she can assume she's probably pregnant. That's kind of cool. Your phone can't tell you when your period's going to start. It has to be predicted by the biological marker of your own fertility and watching for this ovulatory event. The only way to actually predict the moment of ovulation, to see that egg come out, is through ultrasound. But we know through science now that watching these cervical mucus patterns can predict that fertile window up to like a 72-hour radius 95% of the time using cervical mucus changes. So we got it to the point where now with NFP, it's super highly effective. So when a couple uses this to either achieve or avoid a pregnancy, the woman knows her body so well, she learns how to chart these biological markers on a daily basis. She can know every day whether she's fertile or infertile. And then the couple uses it by deciding how are they going to use it this month. And so they choose to either have intercourse on the days where she could get pregnant to have a baby, or they choose to have intercourse on all the other days that are infertile to not have a baby. Does that make sense? So modern fertility awareness-based methods, these are all now scientifically researched. They've done large studies on them. And this is it's different than, you know, a lot of times people hear about NFP and they've heard maybe it doesn't work, you know, and that people just have lots of babies. And you know, science has proven now that we can really do this well, and we don't have to put these artificial chemicals in our body. So you can't read this probably well, but on the red bar, these are the modern NFP methods. Symptothermal method. There's a method developed at a Marquette University called the Marquette method. And there's the Billings ovulation method and the Creighton model system, which is what St. Paul VI Institute in Omaha, Nebraska created, developed by Dr. Hilgers, where I work. And this on the other side is the modern contraceptive methods, like the birth control pill, and the mini pill barrier methods and hormonal contraceptive rings. And you can see, if you could read this well, it basically has similar effectiveness on both sides. So, like the symptothermal is 98.2% effective. The Marquette method is 90% effective. The Billings ovulation method is 99.5% effective, and this is all to avoid pregnancy. And Creighton model is 96.8% effective. And the pill is generally considered 92 to 98% effective. And barrier methods are usually considered more like 80% effective. So NFP is actually more effective than just using like a condom. So, you know, these are methods now that a lot of people are drawn to for reasons outside of just religious. So, of course, we know that NFP is good because it follows the plan that God designed for our bodies. There's other reasons why people might be drawn to using a method of NFP. It's green, it's organic. So like, there's a lot of people who come to using a natural method for family planning that, you know, again, they were just a woman shopping at Whole Foods on a daily basis. They're looking for the meat that doesn't have the injected hormones in it. And they're drawn to these methods because they don't want to put artificial chemicals in their body. They want to respect the natural cycle in their body, because if you don't know, birth control basically shuts down your reproductive system as a woman. It's the only system in the human body that we actually take a pill to stop working. And so a lot of women who are organic and natural, they don't want to do that. And so they're drawn to it for this reason. It's comparatively inexpensive to birth control, because once I learn it, it's an education in body awareness and biological marker education. Once I learn it, then it's a one-time cost, and so you don't have to pay for it for a lifetime. I've been using it for 20 years. All of my children were planned with NFP, and my last baby is in kindergarten, and I've been using it to now. We've kind of finished our family for now, and used it to avoid pregnancy. So it's highly effective to both get pregnant and not get pregnant. And if you want to get pregnant, it's the best way. Obviously, to get pregnant, to know the days that you can, people who use NFP are going to be pregnant in 3 cycles, 98% of the time, if you have normal fertility. So it's a great way to not take the guesswork out of how you make a baby. It strengthens a couple's relationship. They've shown, like, in many, many studies, that divorce rates for people who use a natural method for family planning have low divorce rates. And I truly think the biggest factor to this is communication. So often you'll hear, like, marriage experts talk about what are the factors that keep a couple together. And almost always one of the top factors is communication. Because when you're using a natural method, you're always talking about this stuff. Like, it's a month-to-month thing, right? We're always having to talk about, you know, what's going on in our life. You know, when are we going to have a baby? What's our financial situation? Are you going to go back to school? Do we have a house? Can we afford a house? All of these, like, life decisions that you make, when you're using a natural method, you're always reassessing that, and you're communicating as a couple. And it's a shared method that you use together. It's a shared responsibility. So yes, the woman has to educate herself and know her body, but the man is always participating, because you kind of have to be on the same page, you know, in using it, because this is a decision in your behaviors then, and how you decide to use it to either achieve or avoid. And that creates virtue in a couple. Because there is a point in a cycle, if you're not going to have a baby, that you abstain from the days where a woman could get pregnant. And what that causes is almost like a honeymoon effect, or, you know, there's always this period of waiting and coming back. And that cycle is really, really a healthy and a virtuous thing. And we know now it's super effective, so it's not old methods, not rhythm methods. These are highly effective, science-proven methods of NFP. And for me, it's a diagnostic tool. So in my practice, when I have couples that have charted and know their body, like, I can get to the underlying root cause of their issues. I treat infertility often, and having a woman know her body is first and foremost important. Because we can look at their charts and we can see details in those charts that tell us if her fertility is normal or abnormal. And so for me, it's a diagnostic tool. And all of the conditions that I treat in women's health, we use this information. It provides a great tool for us. Really simple, easy to learn, not hard for women. And it's countercultural. You have this freedom to be your authentic self. I saw a hashtag recently from a woman talking about natural cycles that, you know, hashtag free to ovulate. You know, we have a world of women that are suppressed, basically, and on these hormones that basically shut down their woman's cycle. This beautiful thing that God created in your body that ebbs and flows each cycle, millions of women are completely stopping that. Hashtag free to ovulate, like free to be yourself, free to be the woman that God created you to be. And it keeps in mind, with, of course, the Catholic Church's teaching on human sexuality. What does that mean? Okay, if we go back to what I talked about at the beginning, if you are meant to be total self-gift to other, if you are meant to will the good of the other on a daily basis, then putting a barrier between you and your spouse is not total self-gift. You're holding back something that, again, if we think about what our origin is that imprint of God's divine image inside of us. You're shutting that down between you and your spouse. The imprint of God's divine image inside of you when you use a contraceptive barrier or medication between you and your spouse. And it's as simple as that. Total self-gift. It doesn't mean that the church is saying, have 10 kids. The church is saying, let me be a part of it. Let God into your lives as a couple, and let that marriage be fruitful. Not just by having children, but let it be fruitful in a million other ways. Let it encircle the world. Your love is a visible sign of the reality of God on this earth. All love craves unity. As the highest peak of love in the human order is the unity of husband and wife in the flesh, so is the highest unity in the divine order, is the union between the soul and Christ in communion. Again, this imagery, this is Fulton Sheen. I love Fulton Sheen, which is why I have a Fulton of my own. But in communion, which is so hard sometimes to grasp, and again, some of these ideas are sometimes hard to grasp as human beings, but how we should feel when we walk up to communion is that our souls are uniting with Christ, that Christ is within us in the most powerful way possible. And what the church is telling us is that in marriage, your bond between your spouse and you, this total union that you have, that's the same thing. That's the same type of union that Christ gives us when he's given his body, blood, soul, and divinity to us. All right, that's all I got for you guys in terms of content for this part of it. And I would love, I know it'll be hard, but I would love for a couple people to ask any question that they have about anything I've talked about. Anything related to the science around things, anything related to anything that came up in the Kahoot you didn't understand, anything at all. If you ask a question, you get a baby card too. Yes? If you've skipped a period for 8 months, yeah, so that would be a long, irregular cycle. And so now that you know what causes a period is ovulation, right? So what that means is your body is not ovulating. And so when you don't ovulate, you don't get a period. And so that's a situation where there may be an underlying hormonal issue or a woman's health issue that needs to be kind of understood and evaluated. And so that, generally I would say, coming to someone like me would be helpful, or going to your doctor. And if you want to talk about it more later, we can even personally. Does that sound good? Yeah. Who else has got a question? Yes?
What was the Creighton method you talked about?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So you've heard of Creighton University probably. So back in 1978, the Creighton model system was developed and researched at Creighton University in Omaha by Dr. Thomas Hilgers. So Dr. Hilgers is an obstetrician gynecologist who started the St. Paul VI Institute. And originally he was involved in pro-life ministry as a medical doctor, and he had researched NFP, knew that the science behind it wasn't really strong, so he started doing all this own research himself, and he wanted to help develop a method that was more scientific. So he started tracking women's cycles, and eventually that led to the development of the Creighton model system, and it's a highly effective system. But the cool thing about the Creighton model system is that it's the only method of NFP or charting that is fully integrated with a woman's health science. And that science is called naprotechnology, which stands for natural procreative technology. And it's used all over the world. Naprotechnology is to treat things like infertility, endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, a lot of women's health issues. But it's also used for family planning as well. So it's a form of NFP. And that comes right out of Omaha, Nebraska. People like to say like Omaha is the heart of NFP because Creighton model system is really one of the most utilized methods of NFP across the world. All right, someone want to hand a baby card back to him? That'd be great. Thank you for that question. And for you too. Thanks. Who else has got a question? Yes.
Is it normal to start your period and not have it for like 7 months?
No, it's not normal. And again, basically if you're not having a period, that means you're not ovulating. Again, because now we know the main event is ovulation and the after event is the period. And so if you're not having a period regularly, that means that ovulation isn't happening regularly. And this is a fun kind of thing about menstrual cycles in women. So I told you before that the pacemaker of your fertility care system is your brain, more specifically the pituitary gland, which throws out, and then guys do this too, you guys throw out a pituitary gland message that tells your fertility system what it's supposed to be doing on a daily basis. And so for women, this message is constantly happening every 60 to 120 minutes. If there's some sort of a stress in the woman's body, let's say she started a sport like soccer. She went into her soccer season and she started really high intensity exercise. The pacemaker gets a message, oh, really acute stress just started. And that tells the body, I may not be capable of having a child and taking care of it. And so it's really neat. The God designed a woman's body so that a protective mechanism would be built into it. So if the body senses an acute stress, it may stop the cycle for a period of time. So we see sometimes where women go irregular when they're in their high intensity sports, and then they go back to regular when it stops. Or if a woman loses a lot of weight for some reason, either on purpose or not on purpose, she can stop her cycle. So again, because it gets the message that the body may not be equipped to carry a child. Or let's say somebody's grandmother died, and that's an acute emotional stress. That can cause the cycle to change. Or if you are like so stressed out for finals, the body sends that stress message to the brain. So there's a variety of things that could cause the cycle to be irregular. And this is why, again, when you use a tracking app on your phone, why it may not be able to predict it correctly. Because if one of those things happen, if you aren't watching for the main event, which you can watch for the main event every cycle. If you're not watching for that, that is the true predictor of when a period's going to start. Good question. Anybody else? Yes?
So you said like your body, like I might not be able to take care of like a baby. Does that also happen like when you're pregnant, like in miscarriages?
It's a good question. Yes and no. I mean, it's different when I talk about the fact that that protective mechanism is built in to actually stop pregnancy from occurring. And obviously, if you get pregnant, that stopping didn't happen. You got pregnant. There's a variety of reasons why a miscarriage could occur. And it's super complex, and so it wouldn't just be because of like stress or something like that. Usually there's more going on than just that. Anybody else have a question? Yes?
So are all those methods recognized by the church then?
Yes, 100%. All of those methods are recognized by the church. In fact, if you went today to the USCCB, the United States Catholic Conference of Bishops, they would have a whole website on NFP, and and all of the approved methods, and all of those would be on there. Absolutely. And again, those are all of the ones that also have research and science behind them. So I could pull up studies for you to show you that, you know, I'm not just saying they work and are highly effective, but we actually have studies on them. And that's what people really should use. You can't just go out and wing NFP. I've had some people try to do that. You know, just be like, well, I get it. She told me just like mucus leads to babies. I'll just kind of wing that. It doesn't really work that way. You really, really have to be educated and have a good practitioner to teach a couple how to use a natural method. Anybody else? Yes?
Who created the other methods?
Say that again?
Who created the other natural healing methods?
Sure. Yep. So the Billings ovulation method was created by John and Lynn Billings back in Australia in the 1970s. The Marquette method was developed by a guy named Dr. Richard Faring at Marquette University, and he did that work in the 1990s. The symptothermal method was developed by, I know, a guy, nice guy, good Catholic guy, and that's been out for probably at least since the 80s. And Kipling. Yeah, Kipley, thank you. Sheila and John Kipley. And then, did I miss one? Creighton model, I told you, was developed by Dr. Thomas Hilgers. I think that's all. Yeah, so they've all kind of developed by somebody. Yeah. Hand back the card. All right, thank you guys so much for your attention. Thank you for asking questions, and I hope this information was helpful, and I really wish you all the best. Have a great rest of the week.